brigadeiro, which is a traditional Brazilian dessert or sweet. So we will need butter, condensed milk, cocoa powder, and this step is optional, but if you want, you can also add an egg yolk. I will tell you more about it later. So first I am taking 3 spoons of butter, and in this recipe when I say spoon I mean just spoon, not the American standard measurement. Just use about 3 soup spoons of butter. Now I will turn on the stove and I will melt this butter. And now that it is melted, you don't want to brown it or anything, just want it to not be solid. So now I will turn off the heat. Now you want to add 3 generous spoons of cocoa powder. Something like this. 2.5. This package is nearly empty. Alright, this counts as 3. Now I'm going to mix this up. Reminder that the heat is off. I just turned on the heat so I could melt the butter, and then I turned it off. And here's the thing, you can do this with 100% cocoa, pure cocoa powder like I'm doing. Most people I see, most recipes from Brazilian videos I see, they actually use chocolate powder. And if you don't know, the difference is that cocoa powder is really just cocoa, and chocolate powder has sugar as well. It's sweet. This looks good right now, but if you were to taste it, it would be very bitter because it's just the cocoa. We are going to add a lot of condensed milk to this, which is quite sweet, and I don't feel the need to add even more sugar to this recipe by using chocolate powder. So I just do this with cocoa. You can do whatever you want, obviously. And if you prefer, you can also add about the equivalent of 3 tablespoons, but of chocolate in a bar instead of powdered chocolate or cocoa. But I will tell you more about that later. Just going to throw it in there. So I'm reminding you that the heat is still off. We made our paste with cocoa powder and butter, and now we are mixing in the condensed milk, now it's time for the egg yolk. I'm just going to throw it in and mix it in as well. And now it's time for some secret and some explanations. So first, I'm making sure I put in the yolk after the condensed milk because I don't want the yolk to touch the hot pan and to cook. You do not want scrambled eggs in your brigadeiro, right? Now everything appears to be nicely blended in, so I'm just going to turn on the heat, and you want to cook this slowly at low heat. You do not want to fry your brigadeiro, you just want it to slowly cook. So I'm going to turn on the heat. Remember when I said you could use powder, cocoa powder, chocolate powder, or you could use chocolate from a bar? I watched a video on YouTube. It was brigadeiro from a food science point of view, and basically they said that chocolate bars have this enzyme in them that makes the brigadeiro creamy. So if you use a bar, it will be super shiny and creamy, and if you use a powder like I did here and like it's traditional to do, then you can replace that enzyme by adding an egg yolk, which also has it. It's a bit of a trick. I've been doing it this way ever since I found out, and my brigadeiros are creamy, so it checks out. So you have to be patient. Don't be tempted to turn on the heat, turn up the heat when you feel like there's nothing happening, because you can see it's starting to thicken. You can see it's starting to darken. Condensed milk darkens as it cooks, and it will give our brigadeiro a very rich, dark chocolate color. And it will happen. It's way thicker than it was when we started. Not thick enough yet, but getting there. So you can see it. I'll show you. It's getting quite thick. There's a thing called ponto brigadeiro, which is when it is thick enough that it's perfect. I personally never quite hit it. I tend to undercook my brigadeiro, which means my rolled up balls, instead of being just perfect spheres, they get a little smushed because the brigadeiro isn't quite thick enough. But I also find that to be quite creamy and soft, which is how I enjoy the texture. And to me, flavor is above presentation, especially when I'm making it for myself. So when I get to about this point, I stop. I'll just keep stirring a little bit so you can see it. It creates a path that doesn't get immediately filled by liquid. It has this sound. cover it with oil. Just a little bit, just so the brigadeiro doesn't stick. Brush. I'm going to brush the oil on the plate. Now I have the brigadeiro and I'm going to just dump it here. Spread on the plate so that it cools down quicker. I like to leave it to cool naturally, and after it's room temperature I put it in the freezer for a little bit, a few minutes, 2 or 3, just so it gets a bit of body before I start rolling it. So I will see you then. It is now the next morning, and I don't know if the microphone is picking this up, but my neighbor is playing the piano. Take it as part of the ASMR. She's quite good, so it's not like it's unpleasant. So this sound you've been hearing, plasticky, is me messing with the film I used to cover the brigadeiro. After you're done cooking it, you should cover it with a film to protect it before letting it cool. And as you can see, it will not stick to the plastic. So, now I have some papers. These are way bigger than what I will need, but they're the only ones I had at home. I'm going to prepare them onto the plate. Alright, so now I have little chocolate confetti. Cut off the plastic. A staple just fell into my plate. I'm gonna take that off. You do not want to eat staples. This is a life pro tip. Throw a bunch of this into a bowl. And now I have oil. I'm just going to oil up my hand a little bit so the brigadeiro doesn't stick. And now I'm taking a spoon. I'm just going to collect some of this and roll it into a ball like this, and drop it here. This is messy business. You'll need oiled up hands so the brigadeiro doesn't stick to you. You want to roll it around in little balls of whichever size you prefer. and drop them into the little chocolate grains. The chocolate grains are the traditional way of doing this, but you can find a lot of variation. I also enjoy chopping up really thinly some almonds or some hazelnuts, then covering the brigadeiros with that. I've seen people do it with cookies, like crushed cookies. Some people roll it around in coconut, those dried coconut shavings. That's also something I enjoy doing. I've seen people rolling it around in just chocolate powder or any other kind of powder. You can do whatever makes your heart happy. I finished making the brigadeiro. I put them in a box so I can easily place them in the fridge. They look very smushed together because, as I said, the paper is a bit too big, but I actually don't think it's a bad look. They have a very nice, rich, chocolatey flavor, and I really recommend you trying this recipe. So, thank you for watching, and goodbye.